It's time for the Coach's Corner Show with your host, Pat Disabato.
Hello, welcome to the Coach's Corner Show, brought to you by Beggar's Pizza. I'm your host, Pat Disabato from the Daily Southtown newspaper, and we are at the Beggar's Pizza location, 127th Street and Kedzie Avenue in lovely Blue Island. Have a great show for you tonight, folks. Mike Clark, Deputy Suburban Sports Editor of the Chicago Tribune, will be our guest. We're talking high school football playoffs, Class 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A semifinals. A lot of local flavor. Going to be very informative, very educated, and might even have a chuckle or two. We're going to go to a Beggar's Pizza timeout. When we return, Mike Clark will be our guest. Stay tuned.
We came up with a bunch of clever commercial ideas to entice you into trying Beggar's Pizza. We decided to let the food speak for itself.
Hello, boys. I'm a drop-dead gorgeous pepperoni sausage, hold the vegetables deep dish pizza. Just look at my cheese. Your place or mine. Beggar's Pizza. We lay it on thick.
My experience was nice. It was easy, no pressure, easy sales. The first experience was so good that I kept coming back.
When I arrived to Apple Chevy, I was impressed. Just started with my dad, and then my dad recommended me like, hey, go to Apple Chevy, don't go to a different dealership, they help you out.
Having surgery or dealing with some type of nagging pain that limits your function? Then get to Athletics. We offer treatment for all types of orthopedic injuries, work-related injuries, and sports injuries. Therapists with over 20 years of experience provide treatment that is efficient and effective. Our 2,000 square foot clinics offer state-of-the-art equipment from HydroTrack, Blankenship, and Biodex. If your doctor suggests physical therapy, then you suggest Athletics, where every patient is treated like a champion.
All right, welcome back to the Coach's Corner Show, brought to you by Beggar's Pizza. If you're just joining us, we're at the Beggar's Pizza location, 127th Street, Kedzie Avenue in lovely Blue Island, right across the street from the Shrine, otherwise known as Eisenhower High School. And our guest this week, Mike Clark, Deputy Suburban Sports Editor of the Chicago Tribune, one of my bosses. And, you know, he's an old friend. He's an annual guest, right, Mike?
That's right.
Thanks for coming on board again, man. Good time of the season. Good time of the season. We are entering the semifinals of the high school football playoffs, and man, there's some local flavor, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a good year for the South Side for sure. You know, a good year for Catholic schools too. I noticed that Mike O'Brien tweeted about that. You know, we could have quite a Catholic representation at state too. Although I don't think all of them are going to make it, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's the first 3 weeks. It was kind of strange in a standpoint that we only had one local matchup, that being Mount Carmel against TF South in 7A in the first round, and then last week in the 8A quarters we had Marist and HF. Other than that, we haven't had any local teams playing each other. That all changes, and let's kick it off with the big dog in 8A. From a local perspective, the Pulaski Road Super Bowl will be taking place Saturday at 1 o'clock, 8A semi between Brother Rice and Marist. This should draw a few fans.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this yesterday actually. It's like you better be there way early for that one. I mean, parking is going to be a mess. It always is. People are going to be parked down 115th Street all the way to
Cicero.
Way west, no doubt about that. And don't park on the Alsip side. Remember that, because you will get towed.
You will get towed. That's for sure.
That's a little life hack there for all the fans. But it's going to be a great game. I mean, you know, in week one when Rice beat Marist, I got to admit, I was sleeping on Rice at the beginning of the season. Other people were not, including you. But after that, you know, I knew Rice was pretty good, and I always thought Marist was pretty good coming back from last year, which is why I didn't drop them very far in my rankings. And it looks like, you know, they're both really solid teams. You know, a lot of stuff is talked about their offenses, but you know, the defenses have really come to the fore these last few weeks. And I think and there are some really good offensive players in this game.
Yep.
Obviously, Mike Marquette. Obviously on the Marist side, Jaden Thompson, Billy Skolitsky. You got John Bean, Jesse Plunkett, Dylan Summers on the Rice side. But the defenses have really come to play. I mean, first game was 20-16. I'm kind of thinking it might be somewhere in that area again.
Yeah, I think this one could go down. Whoever has the ball the last drive could win this thing. They've only met once in the playoffs in their history, and that was back in 1994, and Marist prevailed 7-6. So this is going to be a very interesting game. And I really think if Johnny Bean has a shot, last drive, to drive Brother Rice down the field, he can get it done. Mike Marquette has the ball, final drive of the game, I could see him getting it done. I just can't see Marist losing twice to the same team, and that would be their only 2 losses. And they're at home too this time.
Yeah, although I'm not sure how much the home field means in this one. It's like they're a couple miles apart, so it's not like East St. Louis coming up here to play Mount Carmel at Gately, obviously. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a great game. I don't know who's going to win, but I think it's going to be a great one to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. So 1 o'clock Saturday for that one. The other semifinal in 8A is Lincoln Way East heading up to lovely Wilmette for a 1 o'clock game on Saturday against Loyola. This is a rematch of last season's 8A state championship, which East won 23-14. Who do you like here? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think any high school team is unbeatable at all, but I mean, if anybody is going to take that mantle, it's got to be Lincoln Way East. I mean, they're going to go down as one of the great teams in Illinois history, I think. I mean, I'm not writing their name on the trophy yet. They got 2 more games to play, but I mean, we've both seen this team multiple times. I think you start with Jack Baltz. This is a guy who does something that Lincoln Way East hasn't done for a long time. I mean, Lincoln Way East has always been run, and Rob Zavonar has said, okay, I've got a guy who can really air it out, and I'm going to take advantage of that. So props to Rob for, tweaking his offensive game plan a little bit there. And he's got the receivers to do it too. That's obviously the other part of the equation. I mean, if you don't have the receivers, it doesn't make any difference how far your quarterback can throw it.
Right.
Jackson Ritter, has just really come into his own this year. I mean, you look at him, I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's got great hands, he's got better speed than you might think for a guy his size. They've got other guys too, and, the running backs, we've talked about them, obviously Devon Williams, filled in for A.J. Henning at the beginning of the year, Jordan Corbett, Jamal Johnson. I mean, and the remarkable thing to me about this team is that they're as good as they are without arguably the best player in the state really having to do very much. You know, A.J. Henning is the top junior in the state, 26 offers, I think, and counting. He's going to be a big timer. Could be playing on Sundays down the road. He's definitely going to be playing on Saturdays in big games. And the great thing, from Lincoln Way East standpoint and from AJ's standpoint, and Rob has talked about this, it's like they know that he's got a lot bigger things going on down the road, and there is no reason to give him the ball 30 times. You don't have to do that with this team.
No.
So he's even that much more effective when you give him when he gets 10 or 12 touches a game. So, and on the other side, Loyola is just really one of the great comeback stories of the year. I mean, I saw them early in the year, week 2 against New Trier. They looked awesome. They looked typically Loyola. Won that game 41-3, and you thought, okay, this is another great Loyola team. And then things really went south on them. They lost to Mount Carmel at the end. They lost to Brother Rice in a blowout. They lost to Montini after blowing a 20-point lead.
At home.
At home, yes. First time Montini's ever beaten them. And Montini's had some good teams before too. But so it looked like things were really, people were talking about, are they even going to make the playoffs?
Right.
Here we are in week 13. Not only did they make the playoffs, they just knocked off Maine South 17-0 and held Maine South under 100 yards of total offense. Maine South is a really good offensive team. So basically you've got kind of the typical Loyola formula. You got a great defense, and they really sorted things out offensively. When they were in a funk in the early part of the season, they could not run the ball. couldn't run the ball against Rice. They didn't run it really effectively against Mount Carmel. They didn't run it really effectively against Montini. And they've sorted that out. So now they can run the ball to set up the pass a little bit. They're never going to be a team that throws the ball a lot. But they need to be able to run the ball so that they can throw the ball, you know, in strategic situations. And now they're able to do that. Now they're playing as well as we expected them to be at the beginning of the year. It's just been a really crazy season, and it shows you again what kind of a coach John Holosek is. I mean, you know, a lot of teams would have just completely fallen apart where they were after 6 games, you know, and here they are 6 more weeks into the season, and, you know, it looks like nothing different from the usual Loyola team.
Yeah, and then Johnny Holosek's a Marian Catholic grad who played in the NFL, but I'm going to tell you something, it's going to take an act of God. Saturday, 50-mile-per-hour winds, you know, driving rain. This Lincoln Way East team has outscored opponents by like 450 points. They are unbelievable. They have so much depth and so much skill all across the board. And they have a great kicker who routinely puts the ball in the end zone. You have to drive 80 yards. The Dominator, you know, Dominic Zobin, you have to drive the ball 80 yards on a kickoff. I mean, so they're a complete package. I don't see it happening. But that's why they play the games, Mike. That's why they play the games. So we'll see on Saturday. But that's a doozy again, 1 o'clock out at Loyola.
And the Bears have inquired about him already.
Yeah, and the Bears have inquired about the Dominator. I think Lincoln Way East could give Illinois a run for its money. All right, we're going to go to Lisa Thomas Salon timeout. Remember, folks, Mokina, Tinley Park, Orland Park, 3 locations, great stocking stuffer. Lisa Thomas Salon, all our sponsors pretty much. So we come back more with Mike Clark. Stay tuned.
At Lisa Thomas Salon, we think loving yourself and your selfie starts with the perfect stylist. That's why we've assembled an amazing team, each with a unique passion for beauty, providing the perfect combination of innovation and experience. Then adding just a little bit of fun for hair, skin, nails, and makeup. No one does beautiful like Lisa Thomas, because life's too exciting to settle for the same old thing. Schedule today at Lisa Thomas Salon, a Redken Elite partner with 3 area locations.
Bob's Auto Body and Repair in Blue Island has been prospering since 1968 when Robert Warniak Sr. opened a business. Bob's goal? To go above and beyond to satisfy their customers. Whether it's a small ding or a major collision repair, Bob's is a trained technician with state-of-the-art equipment to meet the high standards their customers expect and that Bob's demands. Bob's also offers complete mechanical services for your automobile, from an oil change to brake repairs. Mention this ad, Bob's will detail your car for free with any auto body work or give you a free oil change with any mechanical work. Bob's Auto Body and Repair, Blue Island.
If you're suffering from physical pain, nothing else matters. The one thing that should is Midwest Orthopedic Consultants, because experience never mattered more. Serving the community for 25 years with over 90 years of combined orthopedic experience, our fellowship-trained surgeons provide individualized care to those suffering from orthopedic pain. We deliver comprehensive care from diagnostic to surgical to rehabilitative services, all under one roof in each of our locations. Midwest Orthopedic Consultants, bringing university-level orthopedic care close to home.
Welcome back to the Coach's Corner Show, brought to you by Beggar's Pizza. If you're just joining us, our guest this week, Mike Clark, Deputy Suburban Sports Editor of the Chicago Tribune, and he's been a guest of ours just about every season. So, all right, Mike, we talked 8A. Let's hit Class 7A. And, you know, as much as, you know, Mount Carmel has surprised some teams, obviously, with this Jordan Lynch taking over as head coach. And this St. Charles North team is on a little bit of a run. They've kind of come out of nowhere. I think they've been an 11th seed, a 6th seed, and a 10th seed, and they're a 22nd seed themselves. They're 9-3. So they've kind of, if there's a team that has the old Cinderella slippers on, it's St. Charles North, but I got a feeling Mount Carmel might take those slippers right off them this week.
Well, I would disagree a little bit. St. Charles North, everybody thought that they were going to be pretty good coming into the season. They had about 18 starters back from a team that played a couple of playoff games last year. This is a team that they've been working, or this is the year that they've been working toward, rather. And everybody thought they were going to be really good, and people thought that this was going to be the breakout season for them, for their program, because nobody from St. Charles, either St. Charles North or St. Charles East, nobody's ever gotten to the semis. People thought that this was going to be the year for that team. Then their quarterback, Peyton Brown, got hurt right at the in the first game of the season. He went out with a season-ending injury for the second year in a row in week 1. And the interesting thing there is his brother was the backup, so he becomes the starter. And they play in a really good conference. The Duquesne, Batavia, which is the defending 7A champ, is in that conference. Wheaton-Warrenville South, which had a real bounce back year, is in that conference. St. Charles East is in that conference. Pretty good conference. And they had a couple of close losses to Wheaton-Warrenville South and Batavia. Took them right down to the wire. As a matter of fact, Wheaton-Warrenville South won on a field goal at the end, and they came back and beat Wheaton-Warrenville South last week. So the 9-3 record is a little bit deceiving. The 22 seed is a little bit deceiving. They played a good schedule. They played really tough. So I don't think it's too much of a surprise that they're here. As far as Mount Carmel is concerned, I think probably what everybody was wondering, how is the new offense going to shake out? And the answer is really well, obviously. Jordan said he was going to come in, put a little bit more passing into the game. Obviously, you've got the one-back sets now as opposed to the option. But, Rad Primovic is really a good quarterback to be running this offense because he has really picked up on what Jordan is trying to do. He's able to throw the ball. He had a long touchdown play last week. But the other story is obviously the defense. Dave Lenny is still there running the defense, and man, their defense has been really good this year. Obviously, they've only lost the one game to Maine South way back in week 2. That was when Bobby and Sarah was still playing for Maine South, and he was a real difference maker. But other than that, they've pretty much rolled through the schedule. Winning at Loyola was a huge game. That was early in the season. People still didn't really know much about Mount Carmel. Winning at Loyola was just a really big game. And we talked in the earlier segment about how Loyola has struggled a little bit this year, but still, most teams don't go into Loyola and win. So that was kind of okay, let's take a look. Mount Carmel really is pretty good, obviously.
Yeah, they served a little notice there.
Yeah, and so this is going to be interesting. The winner gets Batavia or Nazareth. That's a rematch of last year's 7A title game on the other side of the bracket. Mount Carmel is playing pretty well right now. Again, the offense is really clicking. The defense is really good. It's looking pretty good for them, I would say. At the same time, St. Charles North is not a team to be overlooked.
Exactly, especially at St. Charles North. That game is Saturday, 1 o'clock as well. All right, in 6A, we've got some local flavor here. We have Richards, who is 12-0, at Crete-Monee, who is 9-3. And Crete-Monee lost their first 3 games, but 2 of those 3 opponents are playing in the semifinals this week, Lincoln Way East and Brother Rice, who are combined 24-0. So that game's Saturday at 2 o'clock at Crete. This is, Crete has been a little bit of a sleeper this year, but they've got a ton of athletes. They've rushed the ball for 3,300 yards this year, and they don't have a kid over 1,000. So they're spreading out the wealth. They got 4 different kids. They got 2 really good defensive ends. Dion Harry and Jalen Brown are 2 bookends at the ends on defense. So. And Richards is Richards. They got a kid, Sebastian Crasher, who's going to Iowa, a safety, quarterback, receiver. He could be playing on Sundays down the road. He is that good. And LaShawn Williams at running back. What do you think here, man? This is going to be a doozy.
I think it's going to be a great game as well. And this is what I've talked about. I've got a podcast with Edgy Tim, and this has kind of been one of the running themes of the year that we've talked about is that, one of the things we've kind of seen with Crete is that, they have really dominated once they get into the playoffs. They're in the southern bracket in 6A, and what you're seeing is that what I've seen is that the teams downstate that are pretty good just don't play the kind of competition that the teams up here play, and that really plays out in the playoffs. We're talking about JCA at some point a little bit later too. Look what JCA has done. Not to jump ahead of ourselves, but they're averaging 50 points a game in the playoffs. Against downstate teams. So that's kind of shows you where the level of and JCA barely made it into the playoffs. Crete, we knew that they were going to get in. Once they got past that rough early stretch, we knew they were probably going to dominate in the Southland, and they did. Richards just keeps rolling on. I remember talking to Tony Sheehan back in June at their 7-on-7, which was, 5 months ago. They thought this was going to be a great team, and then they get Markel Porter, who gives them another great athlete, obviously. allows them to do some different things. Obviously, a quarterback with him and Sebastian. LaShawn Williams has been great. One of the great stories, Walter Riley coming back, missing the whole season last year with the ACL. He had a big game, I guess, was it 2 weeks ago?
2
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Really kind of saved them in that game. So I think it's going to be a great game. You're going to see a ton of athletes out there on the field in this game, and I don't know. I think it's going to be a competitive game.
Yeah, I think Richards may squeak it out, but they have to play better than they did against a normal West last week. That ain't going to cut it. So this is another one that may come down to the last possession. All right, folks, we are going to go to an athletic, sports, and orthopedic physical therapy timeout. Remember, 2 locations, Oak Lawn, Orland Park. We'll be out at one of those locations in the next couple weeks. We come back more with Mike Clark. We'll talk 5A semis. Athletic, Sports, and Orthopedic Physical Therapy is a 2,200 square foot facility that includes the latest in rehabilitation equipment, including the HydroTrack underwater treadmill. All therapists at Athletics are experienced and offer hands-on treatment for patients that require such therapy. Whether it's your feet, ankles, knees, hips, lower back, shoulders, elbows, wrists, neck, or jaw, Athletics is here to help. We at Athletics understand you as a patient have the right to choose where you receive treatment. Ask your physician if Athletics, with locations in Oak Lawn and Orland Park, is right for you. Whether you're in the mood for a Chicago-style hot dog, Italian beef sandwich, Philly cheesesteak, or charbroiled cheeseburger, Joey's Red Hots has you covered. In the mood for something lighter, Joey's Salads promises to hit the spot. Looking to cool off on a hot day or after a workout? Joey's refreshing homemade Italian ice will satisfy. Come check out Joey's Red Hots at 17400 Wolf Road in Orland Park or at 115th Street and Western Avenue in the Beverly community, where they're open until 5 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. No matter which location you visit, Joey's Red Hots promises to provide exceptional tasting food at an affordable price. All right, welcome back to the Coach's Corner Show, brought to you by Beggar's Pizza. We've been joined by this family cheese and sausage, which, Mike, you going to be able to handle this, man? You going to be do this last segment without tapping into this pizza?
You're going to have to help me out with that.
It's a beauty. It's a beauty. All right, we're going to talk in 5A now. And this is a great one here, man. You got Hillcrest, 12-0, pretty much have not been challenged all season, longest they've ever advanced in the program's history, against 13-time state champion Joliet Catholic, who Mike alluded to, 5-4, and now they rattle off 3 straight, and they are a juggernaut.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the storyline for JCA this year, obviously, is they thought they had 2 pretty good running backs coming into the season. One of them got hurt in the very first game against St. Rita, and he's out for the season. Keenan Haley has done a great job. Nick Iannantone.
Nick,
sorry.
Yep. Nick is, don't mess up that Italian name.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I stumble over that a little bit, but I mean, so,
it is a tough one.
So, they've got 2 great backs. I mean, they do what JCA does. I mean, there's nothing fancy about it. There's nothing tricky about it. They just do what they do. And, and again, as we were alluding to rather in the earlier segment, I mean, basically what we're seeing here is that the teams downstate, they just do not play the kind of competition, and when they get into the playoffs against teams from up here, it's really tough. And again, Edgy and I were talking about, I think it's probably time to talk about going to 1 to 32 seeding for the top 4 classes, because the balance of power is definitely up here for 8A. Obviously, there's only a handful of 8A schools downstate, pretty much for 7A also. And I think in 6A and 5A, there's more schools downstate, but they're just not as competitive on a regular basis. And that's just where we're at right now. The teams up here, JCA plays in the East Suburban Catholic. I mean, when you get through the East Suburban Catholic and just get into the playoffs, that's all they look to do. I mean, it's kind of, there are other conferences that are like that as well. I mean, kind of the Catholic Blue is like that. The old DVC, now the Duquesne, is like that too. But I mean, JCA has played, their 4 losses are not anybody to be embarrassed about losing to.
Exactly. Yep.
And people got to remember, they were 4-4 going into the last week, and they had to beat Notre Dame, which was pretty good, and which is actually also still in the playoffs in the 6A semis. And they cut a little bit of a break there because Ty Gavin, who is the reigning ESCC Player of the Year, didn't play that game. He was hurt. And nothing, I mean, not taking anything away from JCA, but that did change the dynamic of the game, obviously. They won that game, and now both of those teams are still in the semis. as far as Hillcrest is concerned, I haven't had a chance to see them this year, but I mean, we thought that they were going to be pretty good heading into the season. You know, they lost Basil Weber, the quarterback, and you're telling me that I guess he's probably going to be back.
He's back.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be quarterback, and Montez Garrett might still be a quarterback, but he has been cleared. So.
Right.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, it should be a great game. I mean, you know, Hillcrest, it's one of the great stories of the last few years. You know, they were really good for a long time. They fell on really hard times for a while, and you know, Morgan Weaver has come in and really turned the program back around again, and this is the year for them, it looks like. You know, we'll see how it goes.
Yep, and that one's at Memorial Stadium in Joliet Saturday, 2 o'clock. Hawks got to get off to a fast start. They do not want to be playing catch-up. All right, folks, we're going to go to a Labriola Bakery Cafe timeout. When I come back, players of the week, maybe a high and tight. Stay tuned.
Looking for a unique dining experience with incredible food? Then check out Labriola Bakery Cafe. Opened by Rich Labriola, Chicago's premier artisan baker, you know they'll have great bread, but you won't believe the rest of their menu. Wood-fired Neapolitan pizzas, fresh pasta, and their world-famous Richie Burger. There's also homemade gelato and, of course, their famous bread. Labriola Bakery Cafe and Neapolitan Pizzeria, conveniently located in the Oak Grove Promenade.
At Lisa Thomas Salon, we think loving yourself and your selfie starts with the perfect stylist. That's why we've assembled an amazing team, each with a unique passion for beauty, providing the perfect combination of innovation and experience. Then adding just a little bit of fun. For hair, skin, nails, and makeup, no one does beautiful like Lisa Thomas. Because life's too exciting to settle for the same old thing. Schedule today at Lisa Thomas Salon, a Redken Elite partner with 3 area locations.
Welcome back to the Coach's Corner Show, brought to you by Beggar's Pizza. Okay, folks, before we get to Players of the Week, I got to give a shout out to my boy, Kyle Warniak. Scored a game-winning goal for Robert Morris University in hockey last week. Nice job putting a biscuit in the basket, Kyle. He's a Lincoln Way East grad. All right, we're going to go to Players of the Week. Labriola Bakery Cafe, Golden Baguette, Player of the Week. We're going to hook up Jackson Ritter, Lincoln Way East receiver, hauled in a couple touchdown passes on Saturday to help Lincoln Way East to a 50-14 win over Edwardsville. So we'll be hooking you up with a nice $25 gift card, compliments of Labriola Bakery Cafe, Stan's Donuts, and Labara. Lisa Thomas Salon, Teen Club Player of the Week. Marist Volleyball's Katie Mather, 21 assists to lead the Redhawks past Downers Grove North in the Class 4A state championship game. So Katie, we're going to hook you up with a gift certificate, compliments of Lisa Thomas Salon. Okay, folks, hope you had a good week. Get out to some games this weekend. We'll see you next week.